everyone and welcome to this video. Now today I'm going to be doing an album review. I'm going to take a look at this record here. It's by a band called Kitchens of Distinction and the album is The Death of Cool. So yeah, I'll just be doing my usual thing in this video, a bit of background information about the album, then showing you my vinyl copy of it here, and then I'll go through each of the album tracks in detail. So Kitchens of Distinction are a kind of alternative rock, kind of shoegaze kind of band. They kind of often kind of lumbered into that kind of category. Formed in South London, 1986. They're a three-piece band consisting of leader Patrick Fitzgerald on bass and vocals, Dan Goodwin on drums, and Julian Swales on guitar. So The Death of Cool here is their third album, released on the 3rd of August in 1992. So by this point they had released two critically acclaimed albums, but without much crossover success onto kind of like into like the commercial mainstream. Probably their biggest success up to this point was a song called Drive That Fast from their last album, which had been a bit of a college hit like in like America, but other than that they really weren't having too much success. So at this point we're coming under a little bit of pressure from their record label to make a kind of like a hit album. So in a way this was actually slightly rush recorded after like their second album, like in a way to kind of sort of capitalize on like that success. So it's got a very similar kind of feel to the last album, like in particular, sticking with a kind of similar formula. You've got a guy called Hugh Jones on here who I must say, like when you look up like some of like his credentials, he's worked with an incredibly impressive list like of artists, you know, going right back to like kind of like the late 70s, early 80s, sort of the likes of Echo and the Bunnymen, The Sound, and the Icicle Works. So yeah, very prestigious kind of guy like they were like working with here. But yeah, like in terms of like its like kind of music, picking up like where like they left off with the last album. So the title, The Death of Cool, is a bit of a honour to Miles Davis, who had, I think, recently died, just before the album had come out, and one of his albums was called The Birth of Cool, so yeah, like they get The Death of Cool from that. However, ultimately, this album would not achieve what it set out to do on the commercial side of things. So, because it basically didn't break the band to like a wider audience, basically, or like garner them like any greater attention. So, in the UK, it peaked at number 72 on the charts, which was a step down from the last album, Strange Free World, which got to number 45 on the charts. And I think it was just more reflecting the musical trends like off the time, you know, kind of 1992. What you kind of known as shoegaze was kind of starting to go out of fashion a little bit. Kind of grunge was kind of where it was at, like in like the alternative rock scene. And bands like this, and even Ride around this time, and a few other bands of this kind of nature were kind of struggling like a little bit, like sort of like by like 92, 93. In like America, like some unfortunate touring planning also kind of scuppered like their chances. So like they were opening for their label mate Susanna Wenger, who was quite a mismatch in terms of style. You know, she's a kind of soft rock, kind of folk kind of singer, and then Kitchens of Distinction were kind of more loud, more brash kind of feel to them. But anyway, I will try to show you my vinyl copy of it here. So as you can probably tell, this is a reissue of it, what came out a couple of years ago. It's got 2017 like on the back of it here, but I just recently picked this up online. It is gettable like original pressings of this. It's not super duper rare, but I think I just decided to get like the reissue of it. But I'm gonna try and get originals of their other two albums, or like the first two albums, like what I'm still missing from my collection. So anyway, like in a sleeve here, you just get the lyrics to it there. The other side you get a few kind of black and white sort of quite atmospheric shots like of the band, and then a few credits and whatnot there. And this is on the I think it's on the label One Little Indian, I think was the indie label that they were on at the time, and I'd assume that's the same label what this reissue is on here, just on a lovely heavyweight black vinyl there. So anyway, I will now go over each of the album tracks in detail. So I'll score each track out of 10 and then use those scores to give us a overall percentage marking for the album. Once we were all smiles and plans, dressing up to go. Okay, album opens up with the track What Happens Now, which is just an immediate opening song this, like for me. It really just kicks things off incredibly well, with that great reverberating guitar sort of strums, and then this very urgent sort of like drum roll, and then Fitzgerald's kind of free-flowing bass. You know, they really lock into like a great groove. And yeah, yeah, there's only 3 of them, but it definitely there's definitely a lot of guitar overdubs like on like this album. Or Julian Swales is like an absolute wizard like off like the pedal board, like, because it's just got a great kind of fulsome sound like to it, and so much energy like on like this song as well, particularly when you get to like the chorus part like of it. Yeah, lyrically it's a powerful and hard-hitting track about the kind of decay and sort of loss of connection, I guess, and excitement like in like a relationship. He sings on it like once we were all smiles and plans and dressing up to go, playing outside, playing cards, now it's all been tamed. I guess it's maybe also about kind of like the loss of innocence of childhood possibly with those lines, but then also could be applied to like a like relationship like as well. I mean, it's just got such a dreamy kind of feel to particularly like the guitar tones, but this very muscular musical backing like as well, which just gives it such a sense of urgency. So yeah, What Happens Now, amazing song, and 10 out of 10 from me. Okay, next up on the album is called Four Men. So this was this is a great song to kind of follow it up with. Keeps the energy levels quite high like on the album. Now this is actually an older song for them, so I'm not sure if they were maybe struggling for material possibly with this album, but they certainly sort of go back to an earlier B-side to kind of re-record this song here. So originally done in I think 1988 or 89 kind of time. And when you compare both versions, you can kind of very clearly see the kind of evolution like of like the band. I mean, like the earlier version is a lot more I don't want to say raw, but it's kind of stripped back a little bit. This one here does feel smooth and very well produced, but very powerful like as well like at like the same time. And it's this song again is another track about like a relationship, and particularly on this song a gay relationship. So Fitzgerald was very much kind of quite rare like for like the time, you know, basically like an openly gay man singing about his relationships kind of thing. And I think that was it's a recurring theme like on this album, and it's something which definitely sets Kitchens of Distinction apart like from like other bands, like so like both off the time but also even now like to like this day. So it's kind of like you've got lyrics on this talking about wondering if this is allowed, and like sort of like reflecting the kind of still taboo nature like of like gay relationships like at like the time. But it's just a very dynamic song this. You've got this incredible bridge section where Fitzgerald's vocals kind of drop out a little bit and then they kind of then pick up. He just really sings this song like from the heart kind of thing, and like you can really tell like that he means it. Yeah, just a breathtaking track there for me. Was a single I think as well. I've got it here that it reached number 28 on the US alternative chart, so they were still getting a bit of traction like with this album, but certainly not any like massive success on the mainstream charts, that is. Okay, and then we calm things down a little bit on third track on Tooting Broadway Station, which is another 10 out of 10 song like for me. And this is just an absolutely haunting track with this incredibly bleak sounding instrumental landscape. You've got this heavily reverb guitar on it, and then kind of Patrick Space just kind of gallops along like kind of like quite nicely and very gently as well. You know, it's a very gentle song this, certainly from the kind of start, but then the lyrics on this are a lot more vengeful, a bit spiteful possibly, about again the kind of ending like off like a relationship. And you've got this kind of like he talks about like later like in like the song about burning kind of everything like his kind of former partner owned, and that like sort of like about destroying all of like their like possessions. But I just love the opening line of it, like where it really sets a incredibly kind of bleak scene like on Tooting Broadway Station. distinction. I knelt down and wept. My hands hit the concrete floor until my fingers bled. I will cut him out of my heart and leave these tears in pools. Just great lyrics, which a lot of shoegaze bands, you know, kind of weren't about the lyrics, you know, and were kind of like, it was all about the sound and having a big wall of sound, like kind of like big guitars. But Kitchens of Distinction did that, but also combined it with some incredibly touching and moving songwriting, and that really comes to the fore like on like this track. And then of course the track ends, it really builds like a fantastic kind of musical climax, a great kind of wall of sound. So it's another 10 out of 10 song for me. I mean, it's a pretty faultless album so far. Okay, next one up, track number 4 is Breathing Fear, which was the lead-off single, at least in the UK here, and I got a copy of this a couple of weeks back, like on a 7-inch here. So this one begins a little bit more upbeat, this one. It's kind of, you got a kind of bright kind of sounding like acoustic guitar. I think it's in kind of 3/4 timing, so it's got a slightly different feel to this song, certainly like when it kind of kicks off. And then, yeah, it's a different kind of mood, this track. But then within the song itself, it then kind of completely switches gear, like for like the chorus, like, you know, like where again the pace picks up a little bit, and yeah, it's just a really dynamic song, this, for me. Lyrically, this is another song which very much touches on kind of like gay relationships, and kind of specifically on this song about the kind of like abuse faced like by gay people. He sings like and when the boy arrives, he's got a black eye from the lads who plague us outside. He laughs and calls for the world to die, then hugs and kisses it better. And then kind of towards the end talks about people giving us grief for centuries now. Can't you ever rest? Beaten, insulted, skewered and branded isn't waking enough. You're breathing this fear just once a year, but we suffocate every day. I mean, it's incredibly powerful, like, lyrics there, and almost like you can kind of and again a very bold choice to release like as a single. So much so that in like America, where they were even more conservative like than like the UK, like at the time, A&M were very reluctant to release this, so issued the track Smiling instead, like in like America. Again, as a single, didn't do anything, to be honest, was a big flop, but a great song, which again, another fantastic track. Okay, now side 1 closes off with the track Gone World Gone. So this is the longest song on the album, clocks in at I think about 8 minutes in length, so you can kind of see them kind of stretching out a little bit like on this album like as well. I don't think there's anything like of this length like on Strange Free World, so they're very much kind of embracing that kind of extended song format kind of thing. But this one's got a real sense of calmness to it, a great atmosphere, great kind of shimmering guitar tones throughout it. And this is probably the most kind of, I'd say, classic shoegaze song, you know, because the vocals are very much far back in the mix on this one here. You really have to, the lyrics are almost kind of like incomprehensible. And the lyrics on this, like I said, have been a little bit hard to make out, but they do seem to be about just, I guess, more kind of general, like kind of like anxieties. I mean, it's a tough song. It's a tough song to score this, because it's certainly not a track I would necessarily pick out of the album to say, oh yes, I really want to hear that song. But it's a great song on the album, and it's just a great moment of kind of like the band coming together and sort of like making like a really moving track there. But I would give it a 9 out of 10, just because again it's not the most immediate track like on like the record for me, but still a really great song. Okay, next song up on the album is When in Heaven. Now, this is a great opener to side 2 because it's a lot more upbeat, you know, it kind of welcomes you into side 2 with a kind of, not quite a false sense of security, but a kind of song which feels like quite commercial sounding, you know. It's got this kind of Manchester kind of feel to it, you know, with like in like the kind of like the drum rhythm and that, and it's an intriguing song lyrically like as well. This very memorable opening line like that, when Marilyn Monroe woke up in heaven, and then kind of compares this kind of like the idyllic scene of Marilyn Monroe in heaven, kind of sort of, I think he talks about buying the shoes to wear for the perfect day and like all that kind of stuff, to the reality like on kind of earth for kind of gay people like at like the time, and alludes to the AIDS epidemic like in like the lyrics where he sings like and we will be safe tonight and not wake up next to strangers thinking I killed the one I love. I mean, it's a great song. Again, another single, or another very bold choice to release it as a single. Great music video as well, kind of an amusing video, you know, with the band kind of, they're all dressed as kind of dressed up like as angels and that, and it's yeah, it is a great song, this, and easily one of my favourites like on the album. Okay, next up is Mad as Snow. Now this one is a much slower track, this one, about kind of I guess kind of feeling secure like in a relationship, but also how kind of bad experiences and kind of scars and that kind of don't last forever. It kind of talks about like we can't get hurt, it melts and fades, close your eyes, they've all gone now, it's safe for me. So quite kind of comforting lyrics on this one here. Again, kind of Swale's guitar part on this is just incredible. Again, I can only assume that he's done a lot of overdubs like on this one here, but it's got lots of different effects and feedbacks going on. It's just it just gives it a very kind of powerful feeling to it, and it just really builds up to that really nicely. It is my least favourite on the album, but it is still an 8 out of 10 song. So I mean, yeah, you're just seeing here like nothing's dipping below like an 8 like out of 10 like on here. I just think this is an incredibly consistently good album, and yeah, like even a track like this, which I'd say is my personal least favourite, I guess others would say is the highlight like of the album. So yeah, it's all very subjective this, but no matter the snow, for me we'll get an 8 out of 10. Okay, next up is a track called Smiling. Now this one here is probably the most upbeat, most commercial, most accessible moment on the album, and it's just placed really nicely like on side 2 here, in between kind of 2 more darker, slower songs, you know. This one is just a real shot of energy, I think, with some great kind of like arpeggio guitar playing. It's kind of got, it feels a bit jangle pop, kind of Smith's REM kind of sound, but kind of like updated kind of thing with a kind of 90s production on it. And yeah, it kind of like I said, like gives side 2 like a burst of energy. This one seems to be talking more about a kind of unlike some of the other tracks, about a kind of straight relationship. He kind of mentions a kind of guy, like a kind of woman or girl kind of talking to each other, kind of conversing and kind of discussing kind of like living their life together without any real kind of responsibilities, and kind of just sort of free, like kind of like a free will kind of sort of song. He says like anything can be done, shall we get very drunk? He says I stay alive, it's the best thing, the only thing I know. So quite kind of in a way kind of life affirming, but also just like I mean they've got nothing better to do kind of thing, like them like kind of get drunk or get very high, I think they say like towards the end like off like the track. But a great song though. I mean, it should have been a big hit this, I think, you know. It was definitely has kind of sort of like that kind of like written all over it, like I'd say. It was the biggest successor from the album singles wise, so as I said, this was the US single instead of Breathing Fear, and it got to number 15 on the US alternative charts. Just again a good decent performance for it, but I think should have reached a much wider audience because it is a great song. Okay, next up now on the album, the penultimate track is called Blue Pedal. Now, this is one of the more highly regarded tracks on the album, but it's not one of my absolute favourites. It's maybe just unlike some of the others, it's maybe not quite as memorable. Like some of these songs are catchy, they've got great melodies, but this one here doesn't really have that. It's more, again, all about the kind of sound, like kind of like the atmosphere, like that. So it's maybe for that why I'm giving it like an 8 out of 10, because it's more sound than kind of actual song itself. But there's some good lyrics on here. Again, kind of quite dark kind of lyrics. Like he sings like, beyond love, beyond our hopeless, humanness lies on the other side of the bleeding rainbow where bones are collected. He sings, and then there's again Swales has got some excellent guitar work going on like on this one here, but it's maybe just not quite got that memorableness or kind of feeling of wanting to go back to this song, unlike some of the others earlier on the album. I can lose myself in moments of you. Okay, and then the album closes off with Can't Trust the Way. So this one is a bit of a outlier on the album. It's the only track sung by guitarist Julian Swales, and it's a much calmer song, this one here, a much more almost conventional kind of song, you know, very soft and gentle music, teamed with very romantic lyrics. He sings like, when I'm with you, I'm the ocean, float within me, when I look at you, your brilliant smile stops time, intoxicates me. So very romantic kind of like lyrics this one here, and it's just a kind of interesting sonics as well. You know, you've got saxophone on here, which is an interesting texture, and just gives it a really nice kind of dreamy kind of feel to it. Yeah, it's maybe it's not the most standout track like on the album, but I think it works really nicely like as the closer. Just kind of ends things kind of calmly, and yeah, it's kind of like you don't need a kind of big grandiose finish for this record. I think just ending with a very calm, subdued track like this, I think actually really, really works. Okay, so overall, this album would score a 94%. So yeah, very few albums for me get over kind of 90%, but this one just blew me away, you know. It was a band who I probably got into kind of through my friend vinyl collector James. Like, he doesn't do videos like anymore, but we've kept in touch, and he said you need to check out these guys, Kitchen of Distinction. And I remember listening to this for the first time, and it just blew my socks off. It was just like such a great album, and it's what I do want to share, like kind of like with everyone, and like, yeah, like I have done kind of thing like in like this video. For me, it's just a great mix of kind of the shoegaze genre, you know, which I'm by no means an expert in, you know. I'm probably the only other band from that genre which I do really like is probably Ride, and again, both of them are kind of that. It's not just about the sound and the pedals and all the fuzzy feedback and delays and guitar effects, you know. You've also got songs on here like as well, and the songs on this are just stunning. You know, you've got some very passionate kind of songwriting, personal songwriting, and it just gives the songs even more power and just makes the moments where the instruments are quite intense and quite full on even more powerful for me, and it gives it that real sense of connection and kind of passion. I would also praise the album sequencing like as well. I think it does suck you in with like the first two very upbeat songs, What Happens Now and Four Men, but then kind of ebbs and flows between kind of slower, more atmospheric pieces, but then more like upbeat stuff with kind of like stuff like When in Heaven and Smiling, like in particular, like having like not a commercial feel, but certainly something which I think is a bit more universal, and that would be difficult for someone to say, no, I don't like that song. Well, that would be my opinion, like, anyway. But no, it's just such a shame. Kitchen of Distinction, they would do one more album after this and then disband for a lengthy period. I think they recently got back together, maybe a couple of years back, did a reunion album. I've not heard that one yet, though, mind you. But again, I think they've kind of faded like into like obscurity. But I think they definitely need a lot more recognition as one of the finest acts like of this era. And yeah, this is now easily one of my favourite 90s albums. So yeah, that has been my review of The Death of Cool by Kitchens of Distinction. So yes, I hope you have enjoyed the video, and I will see you all next time for the next one. Goodbye.